Okay, so the first questions that I want to ask you is, what's your job position and where you work? Or
Yeah, so
yeah,
I'm the IT support services manager at Pure Storage.
okay. How you spell your company?
Pure Storage, Pure.
Oh, PURE,
Yeah.
Pure Story.
Yep.
And what is your responsibilities, or what do you usually do at your job when you work?
So
You describe it.
I do a lot of stuff, right? Mainly, right? I'm managing a team of IT technicians
Mm-hmm.
and also the managers of other IT technicians for global support inside of IT services. So my my team, oh gosh, so IT supplies services to the entire organization, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of technical resources, right? And those technical resources need to have not just not really maintenance, but when somebody's having an issue with them, those technicians need to be able to serve those things. So there's the service desk, there's the help desk, and then there's the AMS team. I own those three teams, right? And the managers inside of those teams, right? Um, and so day to day, I'm making sure that they're on task, so to speak. That we create and maintain the standard operating procedure. We own incident services and request services that come into our IT group. So daily, I'm managing most all of those things.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you talk about like IT help desk and the service desk. Is this different? What's the difference between those two
Yeah.
teams?
So the difference between those two teams, the service desk is generally the larger organization, right? Help desk, however, is the physical walk-up service desk, right? So the help desk is a specific service that the service desk has, but service desk is also a lot of more remote employees or people that do support, through online services, right? Like through ServiceNow or through Slack or through Zoom or what have you.
Oh, and then what's bring you to this career? So what inspired you to pursue this career specifically?
I mean, I've had always had technical aptitude, so I actually started out at Pure Storage as a service desk technician, right? Just kind of working at the service desk and like helping people on the day to day,
Uh,
right? What inspired me to be in this position was out of necessity. They laid off the original service desk manager, and there was nobody that was doing the role of managing or maintaining, incident services or support services. So I kind of started just having to do it in my role. And then after they figured out that I could do that, that's when I got promoted into it. So why did I do it? It was a necessity, kind of a thing.
oh,
Yeah, out of necessity. But why I got into it is because I'm good with computers and fixing and troubleshooting.
oh. How long does it takes you to become manager? As
Um,
you work at your company?
yeah, so I've been there now 6.5 years.
Oh, that's a long
So,
time.
but I was a service desk technician for 2 years. Then I was service desk support supervisor for 2 years after that. Then the service desk manager for about a year. And then after service desk manager, they rolled me up into all support services.
Oh,
So to get to a manager it took 4 years. To get to supervisor it took 2 years. To get to technically senior manager that took 5 years.
oh, okay. And um, so may I ask you to describe your career path in detail, like what you learn in terms of what you learn, and how you could get to this current job, like your academic path?
Oh, academic path.
Yeah, yeah.
I went to community college and I studied film. Right. I have an AA in screenwriting. Right, like writing, scripts for movies.
Mm.
So, but while I was doing that, right, I always had the knack for the technical. I ended up working for the technical resources group at De Anza College, and ended up fixing a lot of their camera equipment, fixing a lot of their computers, and fixing a lot of their like racked equipment and stuff like that. So, although not necessarily an academic path, I started through in the job path. After doing that
job
work, I moved to Best Buy and did and did Geek Squad, And then from the Geek Squad, I went to Apple, and I worked at Apple as a genius at the Genius Bar for a number of years. And then from there, I got hired into IT, into the IT at Pure Storage as a help desk technician.
Oh.
So I don't actually have a degree in this stuff.
Oh. Okay. Then what part did you like the most at your job? With your job?
At my job, I mean, it might be a little bit specific. Oh, sorry. What are you gonna correct? Is it my job or something else?
Oh, your job, your position, like
Oh,
your
okay.
daily task. Or
Yeah.
Did you
What do I
have
enjoy
some
the
part
most
you
about
like,
it?
enjoy the most? Yeah.
I like to do operational style things, right? Thinking about how we do our work, or what thinking about it at a 20,000 foot view or high, like a high view. Thinking, okay, what is our objective, right? What are the expected outcomes, right? And do the standard operating procedures that we have. Do those make sense for those objectives, and are we doing things efficiently, right? I kind of got really when I went from supervisor to manager. The reason why they made that change is because I saw a high level of just like efficiency thinking, right? So I really enjoy streamlining the way that we do things, removing human touch elements from a lot of processes, making sure that if there is a process that exists and somebody has to touch it, making sure that absolutely has to be a person. If I can't utilize like systems like Okta or ServiceNow or some of these other systems that may have workflows inside of them to completely automate some of these tasks for us, right? So what I enjoy doing is I enjoy making things really efficient, if at all possible.
Oh.
But on the day-to-day, I enjoy working with my team a lot, right? Like, I have a lot of different people all over the world, but inside of Santa Clara where I do work, right, I've got 6 guys, and they work really hard, and I like to make sure that work is like fun for them, and that we're feeling a sense of accomplishment. We're getting something done, right?
So do you have a team meeting every day?
No, we don't have a team meeting every single day.
Uh-huh.
It's important to give, for me at least, right? It's important that I've hired people that have a lot of autonomy, right, or have a lot of independent thinking, right? They understand what tasks that they have, and they mostly manage their own time, like whether they're taking support tickets or they're doing kind of enhancement projects to, most of the things that we do are run the business, right? But then we've identified certain areas where there needs to be enhancements inside of those things, right? And they take those on as projects. They're not technically projects because it's not net new services, right? But they go through and they kind of like clean up some of these processes, edit old processes, update processes, or even retire services that don't necessarily need to exist anymore. So I think that answers your question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I wonder, as a technician, sometimes you directly interview candidates for a position at your company?
I directly interview almost all candidates for technicians at the company. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then, do you have ever had any projects that you're passionate a lot about?
That I what?
Any projects that you are passionate about your company? Have you ever had it?
Yeah, right. Our AI assistant, right, is something that I'm pretty passionate about. They moved it away from my team. They moved it to a different group. But before that, right, we have this Slack bot, right, powered by Moveworks, right. The ability for that bot to look at our different knowledge base articles or approved online sources, like Google specific help articles or Zoom specific help articles, some things like that, and then have the bot, when somebody asks a question inside of the specific Slack channel or directly to it as an app in Slack, it's able to look at those things and provide an answer to the end user, right? To like completely eliminate the user technician interaction, right? It doesn't always happen, right? Because some people just don't want to talk to the robot or whatever, right? But that's something that I'm really been passionate about because it's able to get us to kind of like that kind of automation is able to get us to like a really astronomical technician to employee ratio. I think Ratner's guide at like our company's size is about 7,000 people. The Ratner guide says like 250 employees to a technician. We're a lot closer to about 700 employees to a technician, and we're able to do that because of this. Not just that one automation, but that bot has a lot to do with it, and also it's like I feel a lot of pride in being able to say like we are able to like really like help people out, but also at the same time like the mass request, I need to reset my password. Where do I find this? How do I do this? Right? The bot handles most of that, so that's something that I really like.
Oh, so the bot is can the way you guys train it is to be like something look um like the AI for I forgot the name, ChatGPT or like Gemini of Google, or basically the bot only answers some questions, common questions that a customer has.
Sort of, right? So internal customers, when they ask questions, right? It has it's gone and indexed, or so it actually continuously indexes, or there's a certain period of time, right? Different sources, and we're directing it to what those sources are. So the offline stuff, or the online stuff like Google and Zoom, like those things. It's not just searching all Google. It's Google's help articles for Google Drive, right? Or Zoom, how to use document. Really approve. We want to make sure to really vet those and make sure that we're not introducing some weird stuff in the internet, right? And then we have our own knowledge base, right? And it indexes that entire knowledge base, right? And so it is just a large language. It's just an LLM, so it doesn't actually truly understand. But when someone asks a question, it can use those context because to identify which articles are the most relevant to what it's looking for, and it can use those articles to construct an answer and then send it to the user. It does use like confidence scoring, right? If it has a really high confidence score, like I know what this is and I know that this is this answer is most likely the right, it'll shoot it out there, right? If it has a low confidence score, it's like this match isn't perfect, but it's very close. It won't send the answer. Instead, it will tell them to go and contact a technician.
Oh,
yeah,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, so it does use GPT. The original version that I started out with in, I think it was 2018, was either GPT-2 or GPT-3 before the Chat GPT function, right?
Yeah.
The version that we're still using now is GPT 3.5 powered,
Right.
but we're closing a contract with them soon, hopefully, to get their newest version of this thing that's GPT-4 powered, like really powerful thing, right?
Sure.
But we'll see.
Yeah. And then, as a manager, like what do you expect the most from your team members or your subordinate? And then it could be about the attitude in work, the attitude toward people around, or effectiveness of your.
Yeah, right. So attitude towards people and attitude towards work, that's the number one thing, right? Being able to bring a positive attitude into work about we can do this, that kind of thing, and also, right, understanding that even though people are bringing you their problems, right, it's good to be a part of the solution. It's we're helping people, right? So we don't want to have a negative attitude towards end users, right? Someone is very not technically astute may come to us every single day. Oh, I forgot my password, that kind of thing, right? And then still being chipper and working with them nicely, right? Not being mad that they're not able to remember their password. If someone did come every single day with a password issue, probably sit them down and have a talk, right? Like, this is a problem.
And then what do you dislike the most about a person who is your subordinate? What's your kind of
dishonesty is like the number one thing, right? Dishonesty, right? Someone that's gonna lie about something, right? I was here on time. That's not true, right? Or I've done these 3 things, and it's not true, right? It's the number one thing, right? Failure isn't bad, right? Failure happens, right? And being honest about it is like a big deal. To give people the space that they need to grow, you need to understand where they're deficient, so to speak, right? Dishonesty is like the number one thing. The other thing behind that is like lack of responsibility. Like they just kind of don't want to own things or don't want to do things.
I see. And then what makes the most successful person in the professional workplace environments in your opinion?
Communication skills.
Can you name three? Yeah.
No, three. Right? Communication skills is number one, right? Being able to both listen to people and understand what they are trying, what concept they're trying to get across, and then take whatever concept you're trying to get across and being able to effectively communicate to the other person. The closer that you can get to kind of linking minds directly, the faster that work's going to be, and there's going to be less either confusion or frustration about what's going on, right? The second thing is persistence, right? Working hard is hard work, right? So sometimes, it's about not giving up when things become difficult, or not giving up when things become difficult, but also at the same time understanding that you just got to keep on slogging out on some of these like more menial tasks sometimes, right? Not everything that you do in work is exciting. Sometimes what you do in work is boring as heck, right? And a third thing, introspectiveness and like self growth, right? Somebody trying to understand more about themselves, right? And the ability to understand where they might be lacking or what strengths they do have and how they build more on top of that, right? So if I'm interviewing somebody, I usually ask them, not very directly, like how do you build your growth, that kind of thing, right? Like, how do you keep your skills fresh, that kind of thing. Well, I look at new technology, I read these books, or I listen to these podcasts, or I try to solve new problems, right? Somebody that is always trying to grow themselves somehow, right? It's really important.
So and then how about like did you expect from engineering, like what characteristic do you think is the most important
In the engineering sense,
yeah, in your opinion?
in my opinion, it's difficult to say, right? Because there's a lot of different facets and people are very, very wildly different, right? And I know I hire people based on different skills that they have, and I'm not talking about what languages they know or what applications that they know. Some people are more strategically focused or operationally focused, and some people are more tactically focused or like in the minutia, just doing the specific work, right? So in an engineering sense, somebody that understands the language and knows how to code this specific thing or knows this app really well and can get into there and really focus and dig in and really do good work and fix that is very important. But then somebody that's operationally minded and understands how somebody has to use that application or how someone has to interface with it or what dependencies or stakeholders that they have, that how it needs to work with the rest of the world, right? So I mean, for me, I would personally put people into one of those two categories, right? I mean, like, I don't really always do it like that, but typically it's like they're, as an engineering person, the one that's focused on how it works inside of the entire ecosystem, they're very operationally focused, or someone that's very focused on the minutia of how it must work and how it needs to work efficiently inside of that one thing, right? So hyper focus versus kind of like it, like the environmental like thinking.
Yeah. Do you usually face challenge or pressure in your job? How can you overcome these pressures?
Always. So there's always going to be something, right? Whether it's an employee that's behaving poorly or having some sort of problem, whether it's a boss or a manager that has expectations of something that you may either not be meeting or you are going to have difficulty meeting, or if it's pressure from a customer, right? Or if there's something wrong with the actual systems that you're working with, right? There's all kinds of things, right? The number one thing to keep in mind is to keep everything in perspective, right? At the end of the day, it is just a job, right? So you definitely don't want to like stress yourself out or really, push yourself to a limit where you're hurting your health by working super hard, like, or more than just super hard, but like actually like hurting yourself somehow, mentally, physically, that kind of thing, right? So keeping perspective is like, I think the best way to be able to get through that adversity, right? That, you get fired, it's not the end of the world, or somebody's behaving poorly, it's not the end of the world, that kind of thing, right? But that perspective also like you use the perspective to stay detached so that you don't get stressed or you don't have like a big problem, but you also use that perspective to understand how that works inside of your environment, what it does affect, that kind of thing. So being objective, being objective, and having perspective, that's how I deal with a lot of that in work adversity.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you want to drink or?
No, we're talking.
Oh,
It's fine.
I don't want it to melt. So yeah.
Appreciate this. Thank you.
And then, do you think there's these traits, these characteristics that you talk about is different or similar to the IT job, like IT operation, IT support that you talk about? The
One more time the question.
My next question is can you name the three most important skill in the IT operation skill in your perspective? Skill. Oh, maybe about like technical skill. Do you think is the most important? Do you have specific skill? It's like coding, or
So when it comes to IT operations, coding is definitely not the most important skill, right? It is definitely like IT operations. The most important thing that you need to do is to have that kind of like wide perspective, right? How do things talk to each other? Whether they're people, teams, systems, pieces of technology, right? Making sure that things work together, understanding what your objectives and demands are, who your stakeholders are, and who's who's affected. What are your dependencies, right? So with operations, there's a lot of moving pieces, right? If we're looking for specific technical acumen, because when it comes to operations, that's kind of more of a, there's not a specific piece of technology that you're interfacing with, right? So it does become difficult to, because there's not a specific piece of technology, right? It becomes really difficult to say that a specific piece of technology or specific skill in technology or with a piece of technology is the most important, right? What I will say is that the skills that you bring, like that perspective, on like the wider perspective, things how they interface together, and then number two, but a very close number two, is troubleshooting ability. The ability to look at something, try to understand what the system is, right? How whatever system it is, right? Yeah. When I say system, I'm not talking about a computer or anything like that. I'm talking about, it could be a computer, it could be a piece of software, it could be a standard operating procedures or policy, right? Looking at those systems, trying to understand what's going on inside that system, right? And then breaking it down and asking the right questions and performing the right tests to understand what may not be working or what is broken, right? So for instance, a recent example would be major incident management. So I own Incident at the company, right? As Incident as a service to the rest of the company. Somebody has some sort of incident, I'm running it, or not I'm running it specifically, but I own how that process works, right? And so major incident, something that is either external customer affecting, or has an impact on revenue, or has a very large impact in number of users at the company, right? Or is very interrupting work, will trip something called major incident, right? That process is a little bit antiquated and isn't really great, right? So in order to understand more about where and how it's breaking, right, we run a test. And that test is, we say, okay, here's a fake major incident. Let's follow the procedures that are written down and see where it doesn't work. And then we use that as our test to kind of troubleshoot what the problems in the system are. And we have a whole bunch of these outputs that we know, okay, we need to change this, and this, right? Or we need to change maybe just this first and see if that fixes it, or change this and see if this fixes it, right? So troubleshooting both, like actual technology and like computers, but also troubleshooting other systems, right? Systems of thought or standard operating procedures or policy, that kind of thing. So that's the closest to technical that I can think, right? Yeah. On day to day, I don't actually have to touch and fix computers or systems very much anymore, right? It is nice to be able to do it, right? I would say that from a help desk or service desk perspective, being able to understand how PC, Mac, and Linux work, right? Where to go for any setting or where to go to get into shell and actually start kicking stuff off, that's gonna be really important.
Oh, thank you.
Hmm.
Um, and then, do you have any recommendation for student like me or other student, same major like me, like engineering tech,
Hmm.
about to become successful? Like
Build a home lab.
yeah.
Build a home lab. If you are trying to be successful inside of inside of this industry, the number one thing that people are looking for when they're hiring is somebody that already has experience. If you don't have a job before, you are at a disadvantage versus people that already had a job before, may be able to prove that they, by having a job, prove that they can do it.
Yeah.
It's that conundrum where people are like, oh, we want this guy, blah, blah, blah. Well, how many years of experience do you have? It's like, well, I'm just coming out of into the job market. I don't have any experience yet, right? And they're going to be thinking that they're going to be hedging their bets and thinking that there's going to be a risk in taking on somebody totally new. Not everybody thinks like that, but sometimes when people are either, they really need somebody to add someone to their team, right? Or they really need to add these technical skills to their team. They're very wary about hiring people that they can be very wary about hiring brand new people. So what you do is you have to manufacture experience by setting up your own services and running them, right? Having a home lab or having your own services that you provide at home or to your friends, that kind of thing, and maintaining and running that service will give you experience inside of your own space on how to do or what to do, right? Like building your own product, so to speak, right? And then when you go into an interview and they start asking you questions, right? Okay, you went to school, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this internship, that's cool, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had to run something like this before? Yes, I have. Or you can be like, yes, I have. At home, I built this thing. I stood up my own Plex server and I distributed it to my friends, and then used that, and then guarded it with this stuff, and put these security measures in place, and then had my friends try to penetrate it and as a red team test, and then I was able to assess how they were trying to attack, and it was protected from their red team attack like this, right? And that would help you. I mean, a Plex server isn't super impressive or anything, right? And that's why it's like you set up a service like Plex or something, right? But then you're actually like building security infrastructure or network infrastructure around it, right? And that's the stuff that would be impressive to people that are hiring, to look at a student, somebody that is actively doing something already on their own. It shows a lot of interest. It shows a lot of interest in the actual thing rather than as just a job, but as kind of a hobby, like an academic or like a hobbyist interest in it, right? And it shows that you can do this because you have actually done it before, right? Maybe at home all by yourself, but you still have done it.
Mm.
It can be financially it can be restrictive, right? Especially if you're trying to get into like network engineering. You're not going to be able to go and buy a Palo Alto Networks yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my first time hearing that, and this is experience, because before I only think that the only way to get an experience is to go to the internship, but internship is hard. Like
Internships are hard.
Yeah, people not ready to hire the candidates who doesn't have any experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you can manufacture your own experience by setting up home lab stuff inside of your realm of expertise, when they ask you about it in the interview, you can speak to it. You can say, I have done this, and you can tell them about your home lab, right? I can almost guarantee you that any technical interviewer that the screening interview person, the HR person that just kind of interviews and makes sure people aren't crazy before they send it to like the actual hiring manager. When the hiring manager actually sees you and talks to you about this stuff, they will be very interested in whatever you're doing with your home lab. I guarantee it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then my last question, during this time or just recently, the job market is kind of going down. You think like a lot of people losing their job. So in terms of IT operation or IT support, in your perspective, you see any impact from people, like get impact from
So I can give you more than just seeing impact. I've been directly impacted, right? not in a negative sense necessarily, right? But other people have lost their jobs.
Yes.
And I opened up 2 positions recently for more senior service desk technicians, right? And I filled those positions with an executive support technician from another company, right? And a IT, or not IT, but a support operations manager from another place. So I got 2 super, almost overqualified candidates to fill positions, right? So
How much? You say how much? How much candidates?
2.
2.
Oh, how many candidates
Oh yeah,
applied?
yeah.
I don't know, like 200-300.
Oh.
Yeah, it's there was a lot of people, right? Like I had my pick of the litter. I could pick anybody I wanted, right? So it's a hiring person's market right now. Oh, when it comes to jobs, it's a hiring person's market right now, right? So it is very difficult. It's very competitive for anybody that's looking for a job, right? Especially in the tech space, especially in the Bay Area where a bunch of people just got laid off. They got laid off not because they suck, right? They have a lot of skills, right? They got laid off because the companies overhired or couldn't afford them anymore. Excuse me, right? So it's it's one of those things where, yeah, with the recent layoffs, right? I think it's very difficult to get into the job market and compete, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. All right. That's it. That's all my questions.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you so much for you also provide me like experience in the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, no problem, man. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great to hear you share about your experience.
Yeah, it's weird for a lot of people. I don't have a degree, right? So a lot of people that I work with have degrees, or they've gone to maybe a vocational school or technical school to learn this stuff, right? And I think it depends on what kind of person you are, right? But I feel like for some of the people that have come out of traditional school for this, have a very narrow field of view when it comes to looking at problems, because they've educated themselves in a very specific set of skills, and they want to use those skills to do it, right? When I go to work, I use all the skills I've had for all these different jobs over the last many years, right? I've not always been in technical stuff. The technical resources group job that I mentioned, and Best Buy, there was like 4 jobs in between those things, right? And I had many jobs before any of those as well, right? So I'm 34 now, right? I started work when I was 15 years old. I've only been unemployed for 6 months, right? So I've been working I've been working for 20 years straight, right? And like getting here is finally a thing, but and other word of advice, right? If you don't like having to talk to people or confront people, do not go into management, right? Management is difficult, right? In the sense that, you have people managing you, but then you also have to manage other people, right? And other people sometimes, if they don't feel like doing it or all kinds of things, it's like pulling teeth, right? It's really difficult.
Right, you're right. Because personally, I don't like the the jobs that really requires communication. I'm not good at communication at all. But my current major is computer network system management. So I'm kind of like do the management job for system stuff like that.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and actually setting up you should set up a better network in this house, and that could be your home lab, right? That could be a thing. I don't know how long you're going to be here for, right?
Yeah. Your experience is told me that degree is not everything.
It's not everything.
Yeah, it's not everything.
It's very helpful, especially when you're talking about network engineering, network management. It's very helpful there, right? Because they don't want just some Joe Schmo off the street, like touching their networks, right? They need to know that this person really knows what they're talking about and what, like what they're doing, right? They're not just gonna go and be like, I don't know, like open port 56, sure, right? Like they want to know someone that really knows what's going on, right?
Right, there's lots of stuff. There's a bunch of things when you talk about networking technical.
Would you be open to if I introduced you to our senior network manager? just to say, hey, do you want to help out someone that's early in career networking, right? Would you be willing to just have a Zoom conversation with them?
Oh yeah, of
Yeah.
course, of
Okay.
course.
I'll
Yeah.
reach out to Caesar. I think I have a meeting with him tomorrow, so I'll bring it up. And if he says yes, I'll put you guys in an email chain together.
It's just yeah, like getting more experience and
Yeah.
talking. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be taking on any IT interns. In fact, the intern cycle, they're already all selected,
Mhm.
right? So that's probably like a next year deal if it's at Pure Storage, right? But I would say definitely talk to Caesar, get a lot of experience from him. You're English second language, right?
Yes.
Caesar is from Ecuador or Salvador. He's from South America. English is also his second language, right?
Great.
But he's a senior manager at a Fortune 500 company, right? So like I think that he's also he's friendly and warm and likes to boost people up. So I think that when it comes to like senior networking guy that knows a lot about networking and how he got there, and then early in career student for that kind of thing, I think that could be good.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's my
no
pleasure.
problem.
Thank you so
I was
much.
interested to know because it was either networking or you were either going to be networking or cybersecurity. Those are the only two places where people go usually.
Right.
Everybody else kind of like that gets into it either falls into system administration or management, right? System administration is freaking difficult, and that's why no one wants to do it.
Because the things that I learned in school is basically they talk about a lot about technical stuff, like how's the network work and the terms
Yeah.
you know, but they never talk about like how's the position and the job's gonna be.
Yeah.
What we're gonna do.
Yeah. Networking is a little bit more certain, right? Because in networking, right, your responsibility is the network itself and the devices attached to the network, right? So it's kind of specific, which is good, right? So you know the bounds of your job, right? In service desk world or system admin world, the bounds are very hazy. We don't know where they really end, right? And if something doesn't go in networking or security or this thing, well, it probably goes here, right? So it's, each organization does things very differently. There are a lot of organizations that have networking and security and then the rest of IT, right? Or like in business applications, right? Oh man, don't even get me started on business applications. Business application stuff is very interesting because you pick a specific product and you're good at that product, right? Like, or ERP systems maybe, and you do NetSuite and all this other stuff, but you kind of get good. If you're good at NetSuite, you're probably going to be working with that one application the rest of your life, which I wouldn't want to do that. That kind of sounds crazy, right? But anyways, though, I'll see if I can make an intro, right?
Oh, yeah.
It might be. If he says yes, I'll hit you up next week probably. And if he says no, I'll ask the whole networking team, right? It's easy. We're good friends, so.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah,
much
yeah,
for
so,
your.
yeah, I
really
yeah.
appreciate.
What's it? You know the old idiom, right? A rising tide raises all boats. It's the job of the people that have gotten to a point in their career to help everybody else up, right? It's everybody's job to do that, right? So when you become senior manager, you got to do it too.
Oh.
Okay?
Oh yeah. Even when like I'm going to right now what I try to looking for is when I go to Indeed or like job board, I usually like look for IT help desk and IT operation because I think engineering they have a very few like engineering position open, network engineering position opening. So I try to
very few and far in between.
Yeah.
Have you considered looking at job postings at MSPs?
MSP?
A managed service provider. Something like Stone Forest or Kaleo Tech.
Managed server provider. Oh, no, never looked into it.
Yeah, so like at a company like mine, right? When you hire somebody on, it's difficult you can't hire people quickly or offboard people quickly, right? So you have a very kind of stable baseline of your full-time employees. And then you hire vendors like an MSP, right? That if you have kind of like this rise in demand or fall in demand, right? That they can eat that cost for you because they hire their own people and you say, I need 2 guys for the month of November, right? And they bring 2 guys for the month of November, and they work that. But then you say, okay, December is very slow, so I don't need those 2 guys. So then they're still hired by the MSP. They just send them to a different company, more than likely, right?
Oh.
And so there's a lot of technicians I know that have gotten their start working in MSPs, right? Because the MSP, what they do is they hire a bunch of technicians or engineers, that kind of thing, and they contract them out to different companies to do work in these different places, right? But you work for the MSP technically.
Oh, it seems like it's more about like human resources.
Not always. I mean, sort of, right? But the resource for a IT MSP is IT people, right?
Oh.
Because a lot of companies they have a like, okay, let's just say for instance that I'm adding a new application, right? Or no, even better, I'm doing a big network expansion, right? And I need to have and I have 4 network people, but 4 network people aren't going to be able to do this whole expansion, right? But this expansion only needs to be, we only can do that project for 6 months, and they can't do it. So I contact an MSP and I say, I need 4 more networking people, but only for 6 months. And they can they already have people, or they will hire people, right? And then we give them money, and then they bring them in as a contract, and then they do the project. Once the project is finished, they're gone, right? But they're not fired. They still work for that MSP, right? So it's managed service provider. They can do HR services. They can do they do lots of different things. But there are IT focused MSPs that you should look at, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look into it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your suggestion.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't know any of this until I started working at Pure Storage, right? And then I started having to work with these things, write the contracts with these MSPs and stuff like that. MSPs, by the way, you're not going to get paid very much, right? Because I pay the MSPs $110 an hour to have to have a person, right? And they pay that person like $40 an hour, $30 an hour, right? So they take the most of the money, right? But they're also footing the bill for like insurance and health costs and all this other stuff, right? And that kind of crap.
And do you know the starting salary for the payment for this beginner entry IT support?
Entry IT support,
you know,
$23 to $25 an hour, very entry level, right? At least in the Bay Area, right? My lowest, okay, not my lowest, my lowest paid technician makes $38 an hour, right? Which is
38 is a lot.
Yeah, it's, I
38
pay really well, right? I expect the best, so I pay good, right? But like some. I had a guy last year that I had to let go, right? He was getting paid $35 an hour, and he was like, I'm worth so much more. It's like, you're not entry level, but you're like a level 1.5, right? Like 35 is the best I'm going to do, and he complained about it a lot, so, I don't know.
35 is a lot.
35
I
is a
expect
lot.
something like 25 is a good payment.
The 20, yeah. When I started at Pure Storage, I only made $25 an hour. Because when I left Apple, I was making $33 an hour. And then I left Apple to come to Pure Storage to only make $25 an hour. It was a strategic move because at Apple, you can't go up, right?
Right,
At Pure Storage, you're smaller company, I knew I could go up, right? So that's why I did that.
Oh,
right.
Great experience.
Yeah. And for not just the experience, but also the growth, right? Something to consider, right? In a huge company, if you're a small fish in a big pond, it's really difficult to move around, right? But you're the same size fish. If you go into a smaller pond, you're a much bigger fish there, right? So going to small companies sometimes has that advantage. The problem with the small companies is that they lack stability, right? They can either be growing like crazy or they can be shrinking, which is a big problem, right? And if they shrink, they can shrink you right out, first in, first out, right? So it's one of those deals, right? It's like sometimes I want to move to a different company, right? Because I think it'd be fun to try something else, right? But the job market is very volatile right now, so I'm not going to be moving anywhere for any time, or unless they don't want me, right? I'm not going to be moving anywhere anytime soon. Yeah. And it's like getting into management's pretty good too. I make $185,000 a year, right? Which most of it goes to the taxes or whatever, but like it's pretty good.
Yeah, IT. I expect IT is only making 50 thousand a year.
It's the Bay Area. It's got to be a little bit more than that, right? But like, you know, IT technicians and stuff like that. So a good example is I have one of my managers. She works in North Carolina, right? And she makes $135,000 a year. Over there, that's a lot of money, right? So she's rich over there, right? North Carolina.
Oh,
East
so
Coast.
East Coast.
Yeah. So she's 100% remote, right? And she was the last 100% remote hire that we did in our org, because they're like, get in the office only, right? So pretty annoying, but she's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you switch to IT operations, I would have you talk to Jessica instead. She's really, really amazing. She's probably better than me, right? She's gonna get promoted over me someday, and it's fine. She's better. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind. I will. My goal is to get experience from people, like see what step they take to drive them to the job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't mind talking to people.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
get more.
Even in different areas, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask Caesar. I think Caesar's probably one of the better people to talk to, especially because he's kind of in your track, right? Also, at the same time, who else is really good? I'll ask Tony Wong too. I don't know him super well, but he's a system admin. He's been doing system admin now for I think 20 years, right? So he really knows what the job market is like, or not job market, but the environment is like in the Bay Area and how people are getting jobs or not getting jobs, that kind of thing, right? I think he's Chinese. I don't know. Wong, probably Chinese, right?
Yeah, Wong. Probably he's Chinese.
Probably. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions you got for me? Oh, I have a good one. Joe Nguyen. He's a guy I just hired, right? He's been doing IT-ish work for a while, right? He might be a good person to talk to about that.
Oh,
right, yeah.
Great.
Oh, Fu Nguyen would be really good too, actually, right? Fu is very manager only, right? If you a very nice suit, that kind of thing, right? He's not very much about the technology, but he is very good at like climbing the ladder, right? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He's very good at getting promoted.
Yes.
Right? He used to work at Verizon before here. Right? I think he was an IT applications manager at Verizon before. So he might be a good one. I'll talk to a couple of people and see if I can get some just conversations set up. Right?
Oh.
I don't know if I think you speak Vietnamese, right? You're Vietnamese, right?
Yeah, I'm Vietnamese.
I think he speaks Vietnamese, right? It might be easier for you to understand. I don't know. Like.
Oh yeah. Vietnamese is much easier. I mean, I can understand English, but Vietnamese is easier. Yeah.
Yeah, but because you speak both languages,
yes,
it's a superpower inside of IT. You know that? So one of my interns from a year and a half ago, Dan Mary Areolas, right? Speaks Spanish and speaks English. He comes into the IT department as an intern and he knows almost nothing about like computers, right? The other guy knew much more about, so I usually take 2 interns at a time, right? The other guy knew a lot more about computers, but Dan had an open mind, right? And is a hard worker and is honest, right? Mm-hmm. And he learned so much so fast that he passed the other guy like so fast, right? I didn't have a job for him at the end of his internship, but we trained him in every single kind of thing that we could think of, right? Here's how you just work on regular computers. Here's mobile. Here's network. Here's some security, only a little bit, right? Trained him on all these different things. Here's how to do a little bit of system administration work. And 2 weeks after he got his internship ended, he went and applied at a landscaping company, right? As a big, corporate landscape, right? Not like, regular landscape, right? But they go and cut the grass for big buildings and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But they are a big business. They still have an office with computers and all kinds of stuff, right? And so they need their stuff maintained, right? But half of the people there only speak Spanish. So they need an IT guy that can do all this stuff and also speak Spanish, right? And then he could do all those things, right? And he got that as a job, right? That's his first job out of my internship, right? He's making $38 an hour, right? And they love him and he's doing a good job, right? So he's a little bit special because I think he has like, he just got it. I don't know why. Like he just totally understood it. He'd never done computer stuff before, but he just freaking gets it, right? But having the two languages and being able to take the technical concepts and move them from one language to another is a really powerful skill, right? So I don't know what Vietnamese companies are. I don't know, VinFast.
Oh, VinFast.
Yeah,
right,
do they
VinFast.
have America? Like,
They just go IPO. I think IPO.
oh yeah, that might
last
be
year.
a good idea,
Yeah,
right? Because if you
VinFast.
speak both languages, you could leverage that and networking technology,
Yeah.
right, to be able to take a demand that's in English and work with a Vietnamese person, and then work with the other English person, and you can move. And it's not just being a translator; you are doing the technical work. You're taking from both sides and giving back to both sides, right? So I think that that's like a superpower, right? Being able to be a translator and also be a technical person, right? Because I think that sometimes that doesn't always happen, right? Anyways, that's just a thought of mine. Yeah, I know that you don't have any more like structured questions, but do you have other questions for me?
I think that's it.
Okay.
All I need questions for my report is already asked. But yeah, you already gave me some more additional, strong and important experience question.
Okay.
Yeah, answer.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, glad I was able to help.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
helped a lot. Thank you so much for your help.
Oh yeah, no problem.
You know, like I'm gonna graduate next spring, but I still like didn't really have any plan for specific plans in my head.
Yeah, it's difficult coming out of school because I told you I have a screenwriting degree, right? I had no idea, like, coming out of school for that, I had no idea how to get a job in Hollywood, right? So I didn't, is the thing.
I know one of my friend, he went to UC David, like about for the film major, but then after 2 years he dropped, and then he went to Florida and learned tattoo because
Yeah.
yeah, filming is, I'm not sure, but
Yeah, it's different in different